Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. If you will answer here once I call your name. Regent Crum.
Here.
Vice Chair Draghi.
Here.
Secretary Hertenberger.
Here.
Regent Marvel.
Here.
Chair Sanchez.
Here.
Regent Shelton.
Here.
Regent Starkey. Regent Stetska. Regent Stetska. I can see that he's here. Regent Tackard.
Here.
Dr. Crystal Albrecht.
Here.
Dr. Jade Bourne.
Here.
Wendy Dalbello.
Here.
Karen Edwards.
Here.
Dr. Cynthia Griffith.
Here.
Carl Steger.
Here.
Kelly Klimt.
Here.
Debbie Kraft.
Here.
Alan Phillips.
Here.
Pam Schiffman.
Here.
Myself, Tammy Giffro. Board Counsel Rick Morris.
Here.
Amos Byington.
Here.
And Matt Graves.
Here.
Okay, I think that completes roll call.
Chair Sanchez, I believe you're muted.
Thank you. Aren't y'all lucky you didn't have to listen to that? Let me try again. I'm calling this meeting to order. It is 6:05. And Dr. Albrecht, do you certify that the notice of the meeting was posted in accordance with Title 5, Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code?
I do so certify.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to stand and say the pledge, after which Regent Marvel will give us deliver the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You'll bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather here tonight in service of this wonderful institution. Father, we pray for your wisdom, your discernment, and that we will act in your will. Father, we pray you continue to watch over the great nation and all of its people. And Father, we pray you watch over those in service of our country. We pray for the first responders, the servicemen, and all of those fighting this pandemic right now. Father, we come to you and we ask that you bring peace, togetherness to this nation and heal all those wounds causing strife. Father, we ask this all in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Chair, point of order.
Yes.
I think we missed the part about you reading the little script about the meeting is by video conference and all
No,
that.
I'm ready to do that now.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry. Oh, yes, I did skip over it, but it is 6:06 and this meeting is hereby called to order. We have the presence of a quorum attending by video conference. Notice of this workshop has been posted online for at least 72 hours. On March 16th, 2020, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus COVID-19. In accordance with those suspended rules, the board certifies the following. A, although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference. This meeting is being held by video conference because the convening at one location of a quorum of the governmental body is not appropriate during the COVID-19 public health emergency. Based on current current guidance from federal, state, and county authorities concerning large gatherings and social distancing during the COVID-19 public health emergency, there is no established location for an audience to observe the meeting. However, the live meeting is accessible through a web link that was timely and appropriately provided to the public and media as part of the meeting posting and via the district's website. As we would at any in-person meeting, members of the public who have followed the standard instruction for registering to speak during the public comment portion will be allowed 5 minutes to speak. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practicable. A video recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public in the college's website. I think I have already done the pledge and the invocation, so that's taken care of. Do we have any citizen inquiries, Ms. Giffro?
No, ma'am, we do not.
Thank you. And so for that, we will continue on to the next item on the agenda then, which is item number 2. And I am going to be inviting comments from our regents concerning attendance at any or participation in any ACC related events. So we will start with Regent Crump.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Last month, I became aware of the passing of Jerry Perkins. He was a longtime band director there at ACC, and in a very real way, the reason that I am here tonight, because of my interest in ACC and becoming a real ACC becoming a real part of my life was through the band there. I participated in both the stage and the jazz bands there for 2 years. I never remember calling Jerry anything except Jerry. He was the band director. He was Jerry. And he was responsible for a lot of people to be connected with the college. Our current director of bands, David Griffin, fantastic instructor, Pat Singletary. Both David and, fun fact, me, David and Pat all met our wives at ACC, and some directly through the band. So there's a lot of people that influenced by Jerry. I'd ask that if they would like to honor him, to make a donation to the foundation, to the band fund, in honor of Jerry Perkins. And so he's a great guy. He'd be sorely missed, a superb musician and a wonderful instructor, a true asset to Alvin Community College all of the years he served there.
Thank you, Regent Crum. That was very, very interesting for those of us who may not have known as much as you did about him. Thank you. Vice Chair Draghi.
I'm good, thank you. Just thank you to the whole staff and ELT for doing a great job.
Thank you. Secretary Hertenberger.
I reiterate what Regent Draghi says, and carry on and be safe.
Thank you. Regent Marvel.
I second that, or third that, I should say, but I also want to give a shout out to Tammy I had to drop some paperwork off at the institution. She was very flexible with her schedule. Thank you, Tammy, if you're on, for meeting with me last week.
Thank you, Regent Marvel. Chair Sanchez will wait until the end to share what she has to share. Regent Shelton.
I can concur with my co-workers on their compliments and challenge anyone else to be as alliterative as I have just been.
Thank you. Thank you. Regent Starkey, are you with us? Well, we'll just skip him because I think he's going to be joining us shortly. Regent Stuxa. Regent Stuxa, you want to share anything? You're muted. Well, did you want to? You're muted again.
Yes, unmute.
Okay. Okay, Regent Tackard?
Just ditto to what Patty and Jody said. I just really encourage the staff to keep on going.
Excellent. Yes, and I would reiterate everything that everyone has said. We are very blessed to have such a hardworking staff. I know they take their jobs very seriously. I had to come on campus and I went and got checked, had my little armband, so we're doing everything as we're supposed to be doing, and so for that I am very proud. I did get to participate in a Pearland Chamber event the other day, a little Zoom meeting, and I was glad to represent, along with Galen Capps, our community college, and I feel like it's an honor to get to do that. And so with that, we will now move on to item number 3, which will be the approval of minutes. I'm going to ask Regent Crum to make a motion to accept the minutes, and Regent Vice Chair Draghi to second that. And after we hear that motion in a second, then we can have any discussion. Regent Crum?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. So that's a motion by Regent Crum and a second by Regent Draghi. Do we have any discussion, any questions or concerns about the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. So I am going to now ask you to vote. Regent Crum, do you accept these minutes?
Aye.
Vice Chair Draghi?
Aye.
Secretary Hertenberger?
Aye.
Regent Marble?
Aye.
Chair Sanchez, aye. Regent Shelton?
Aye.
Regent Starkey? Regent Stuxa?
Aye.
And Regent Tackard.
Aye.
The motion carries, and I guess it'll be 8-0, Tammy, since Jake is not present to vote.
Chair Sanchez, I see him present. I see his picture on the screen, but I just didn't hear him.
Jake, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Aye.
Okay, so so it's 9-0, Tammy. Thank you, President Albrecht. Okay, so the minutes are approved as presented. Now, the next item is information items. We're going to, if you would look at your agenda, you will see the ACC employee headcount and the ACC employee resignation report. President Albrecht, did you or Karen, either one, need to say anything about either of those items?
I don't believe so. We didn't have any resignations. Typically we record the resignations in the month that the resignation occurs, so we don't have any right now. And I don't think there's anything to say about the employee count.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Albrecht. And now item 5 is the president's report. She's going to introduce the information she's going to be given to us, and it is for information only.
Thank you, Chair Sanchez. Wendy Del Bello is going to load the PowerPoint presentation for me.
Okay.
But while she's doing that, I will say that this is a brief report to share the results of this faculty and staff survey that we did recently regarding course modality types. And I have a little bit of other information to share with you about course success rates and our plans for the fall. You have seen the full report of the student survey, and I've included that in your board book. And then there's also the full report of the staff survey, but I thought I would just hit some highlights of that. And I also want to point out that Dr. Pam Sheffman is a participant in the meeting, and if you have any questions that I'm unable to answer, I know that she will be able to. So Wendy, let's move to the slide. Here's a summary, really, the executive summary of the student survey, which you've already seen. A majority of the students prefer online learning in some format. They're most comfortable with online classes except in the case where they need to have the hands-on instruction to be able to learn the material. And their top concern is safety and health, followed by their ability to pay for classes. Faculty survey is very similar. The faculty preferred online learning in some format. They are most comfortable with classes online, except for when they know they must teach hands-on instruction. And we asked them also, do you prefer to have our convocation in a virtual format or face-to-face? And they preferred virtual, which is what we're doing. So we have defined some curricular changes based on this information, and I'll share with you what that is toward the end of the presentation. I think it's the last slide. So you've seen this information already, that students preferred, 54% preferred online or hybrid. But if you really add in the next section, which is modified classes, where it's online, except for the times when face-to-face is required, it really is 71% prefer some mode of online learning. Wendy? And this is just a pictorial of this pie chart. Face-to-face instruction being the darkest blue. And then you can see the shades of green, which are hybrid, online only, sorry, darkest green, hybrid, and then modified. So if you just try to look at the green, you could see that that is over 50%. And then a small amount of students had no preference. Wendy? And here's the information that I shared with you, that the safety and health, it's 65% essentially was the greatest concern, and ability to cover costs of classes was the second most greatest concern. And I think the next slide shows that in a bar chart, where you can see the red line is the safety and health, cost of classes, and then you can see whether they have their job is important, whether they can pay their bills, access to technology at 18%, and so on, transportation, food, and housing. So then if we switch to faculty, and all the slides from here on in are faculty, if you look at their preference, you can clearly see online, remote instruction, hybrid, and modified classes brings us to 70%, which is pretty much parallel with what the students said. They're a small percentage. The students, I think, were 5% that had no preference. The faculty had 7%, almost 8%. But clearly, face-to-face was a very low number. Oh, and I should say too, you could see at the bottom of that slide, there were 202 responses. I think it was 100 or maybe 101 were full-time faculty. That's nearly our entire component of full-time faculty responded to this survey, which tells me right then and there, this was really important to them. Wendy? And here's what you see again in the pie chart. Face-to-face instruction, the dark blue, and then online only, the darkest green, remote, the middle green, hybrid, and modified. Oh, and the lightest blue is they had no preference. So clearly, some type of online was a preferred method for the faculty. Here's a summary of some of the concerns that faculty stated. And they're just in alphabetical order. They're not in order of highest number, but you can read them there. They're worried about COVID and safety and making mandatory safety measures. Can they enforce their students wearing masks and the like? There were a lot of comments about face-to-face they feel is the best instructional method, but, and I'll share some of those, the but is we understand the circumstances that we're living in. Concern about whether we could get into clinicals. What are we doing with high school dual enrollment? How are we handling academic honesty? Whether or not our students have technology. Issues at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. For instance, they won't let us admit any new students, so we know our enrollment will be down this fall. We can only continue on those students who have already been admitted. I do not know why, but it has been expressed to us from the warden. And concerns about technology with synchronous instruction. And here again is just a kind of a different way of looking at it, about faculty saying they are most comfortable teaching classes online in the case where hands-on instruction is necessary, except in the case of where hands-on instruction is necessary to teach. and the least being 2.2 with I'll feel comfortable in a classroom with about 24 students. So just another way of looking at it. They had to rank their preferences. And here's some statements directly from the faculty. Unlike the students, we didn't give an open-ended, tell us your concerns. We didn't think about it, but then the second time through, when we were doing the faculty, we asked them to tell us their concerns. And so you could see various concerns. The first one is about, I'm afraid that we won't be able to get our students into clinicals. Some very positive, upbeat faculty said, as long as the college has a plan, we can come up with ways to help our students learn. And then another concern about safety, making sure that the instructors and students have, and they know that they'll have enough PPE for face-to-face portion of a course. Concerned about dual credit courses and whether their classes will be full or how they're, and really we're still working on how they're going to be offered. A concern really, this next one is really about academic honesty. The person is, they generally prefer face-to-face, but they understand that we need to move to online or remote, but concerned about the authenticity of their students' work. Another similar concern, reservations about effectiveness of remote or online classes, but accept it because of COVID. And the biggest concern, lastly, is the safety of the students as well as the faculty. It's difficult to think of being face-to-face in the classroom, not just because of the obvious risks, but because of the added stressors for both students and faculty. So given those concerns, we looked at what was our success rate in our spring term and our summer term. And you could see the first, toward the left, the spring terms, 2019 compared to 2020. And interestingly, the hybrid classes were, I don't know if any of these rates are statistically significant, 82.9 compared to 83.1, I doubt it. But it's, it's at least on par, right? Internet courses, we did a little bit better in the spring of 2020, and main campus or remote about the same, a little bit less, and again, probably not significant. And the grand total of all locations, 77.7 versus 77.4. And my real question is, are we satisfied with, in general, 77.7? No, we'd like to do better than that all around. But the fact that we were the numbers are nearly identical for our success rate, which completely shocks me, because when we had to make that sudden move to remote learning, we had many faculty that weren't prepared. So I'm quite frankly shocked and pleased to see that as well. And then we looked at the similar terms, summer one for 19 and 2020. You'll see the asterisks there, that number was redacted as it was only 5 or less students, and that's good IR practice. But internet courses compared 76.6 to 80.6 success. The remote classes, 83.9 to 82.8, about a percentage difference there. And the grand total all around, 83.1 to 83.9. So this, I hope, because many of you have been asking, okay, we did it, but how well did we do it? Well, we did it about as good as we did it when we weren't in a pandemic, which makes me feel good. We can always improve, and we need to continue to improve. But this was good information. And the very last slide talks about what our percentage of online and face-to-face and so on will be for the fall. If you look at our overall percentages of offerings, if you have TDCJ included, you can see that we have about 30.6% as a lecture class. It's really misleading, because we're not lecturing at TDCJ, we're doing delivery of learning packets, which the students complete, and we pick them back up, the faculty grades them, and so on. So it's really not a lecture. So we took TDCJ out and looked at our overall percentages, and we were able to drop our in-person lecture classes to a 5.2%. Internet, which is asynchronous anytime learning, 35.5. Remote, which is online but synchronous, so you must come to your online class at 10 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, or whatever the given time might be. And clinical at 5.7 and a small amount of co-op. And then the hybrid, that's the one where they are doing their didactic work online and then coming to the college in small groups, distance learning, experiencing social distancing, pardon me, and wearing their masks and learning the hands-on components in those essential courses. And I believe that's my last slide. I don't know if Regents, you might have any questions or you want to go back to any particular slide to review. And always I'll remind you, Pam is here if you have any really tough questions.
Is there any Regent that has a question? Go ahead, Vice Chair Draghi.
Whenever you were talking about PPE, are we providing that for all personnel, or are they having to bring their own?
So we are prepared to provide cloth masks, reusable masks. As I might have reported to you earlier, we had a team of people that were making them over the summer, and they made, I think, around 250 masks. So we thought those would be good to give to the employees. But the truth is, since we mandated masks at the end of May, employees are bringing their own and wearing their own. We have them available, the disposable ones available to give to anybody who comes through that screening line, like Chair Sanchez was talking about. We can give them those, and we have a good stock for those courses that require them in the allied health. I'm feeling better about our PPE supply, and I know we talk about it all the time, feeling better about it because we have limited the number of students that will really be on class, really down to those that are frankly in the S building, the allied health and nursing, the N building with process tech and the law enforcement academy. That's largely where our students will be. So I feel like we have a good supply. And Alan's on the call, and he if he has anything to add, I don't know.
Good. No, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Vice Chair Draghi. Regent Marvel.
Dr. Sheffman.
Yes, I'm here.
So I noticed on one of the questions, it almost seemed like an outlier, or it was contrary to all the other information. The question was, I do not feel comfortable attending face-to-face classes regardless of the number of students in the room, and 63% highly disagreed with that statement, which is contrary to all the other data. Do we have an explanation why that one would flip?
Yes, she does.
Yes. So there's a couple of times. So we do that in survey design in order to hope that folks are actually reading the questions with their fullest intent, right? And so if they don't read the negative, then the data will look odd. So it also tells us that people were kind of in a hurry to get through the survey. So it's just an intentional way to kind of look at the data, and you kind of have to take that into account when you do your assessment.
Yeah, recently off a stat course, I figured that was the case. So when I looked at the scale, last thing was I noticed that on the qualitative responses, the majority of them fell. There were clinical and lab issues were the majority of the responses on that one. Was there a unique identifier to ensure there was no duplication of student or staff surveys?
So it was an open survey in both cases. For the student responses, we say that they were respondents to that survey because it was put out on social media. So it is possible that somebody could have spent time to take it at least 3 or more times if they so chose. We did not limit it because we wanted it to be easy access for the students. Okay. For the faculty, we did a direct mail to them. Okay, so it's least likely that there are duplicates in the faculty side than there would be in the student side. And when I say student side, also knowing that it could be parents, it could be family members, it could have been anybody who responded to that survey from the student perspective. But our intention was really to hit students. Most of the advertising went out via social media using Twitter and Instagram and things that typically students' parents hopefully are not as high users as the students might be. So
I just know that there was another local institution that had to retract because of that, and they felt like there was replication over and over again. And when I see the same narratives in the qualitative responses, it almost seems like there was a heavy slant from a certain department there. So, but they're passionate about it. That's a good thing.
Right.
So if I can, first I applaud the survey and am grateful for the findings, because I think it'll be interesting for us to track certain things over the course of the semester and see how well we perform against, et cetera, which, you know, I realize that there's a ton of good data here that we got to figure out how to apply and act on. And I think it's obviously going to take some trial and error over the next few months to really hone in on it. You know, when I look at that student response, which I'm glad we got, but I still realize that's only about 10% of our enrollment. So it's good, it's indicative, although obviously not exhaustive or conclusive, but it gives us something to work with. I do think that us being able to really figure out the best ways to measure and see how we do with this, I guess what I'm trying to get around to is I'm equally concerned about our student experience with these new formats as I am the grades that they may have gotten. Because, I mean, the grades are good. I mean, obviously they matter, but the experiential side of this is going to be equally important. And so I think we're struggling with a problem that every other college is probably trying to struggle with too. In fairness, there's probably only a couple of them that have honed in on maybe a few of these things a little earlier than some of the others. So anyway, I'm glad we did it. I'll be interested to see how we perform against it.
And I'll let you know that we are also hoping to stay abreast of what national trends are and other institutions are doing to look at success rates. You know, on a couple panels that I'm on, I'm looking at, like, do we do more pairwise analysis for the fall, because we'll be able to have the opportunity to look at course by course, maybe a little bit more in depth when we get to the end of the fall semester. It will give us a better picture because it's a planned large semester. So our hope is that we'll be able to do a little bit more research and to help at least the future of instruction and make sure that we're doing the best for our students.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to get in the mic too many times, but I guess, and I don't know, Dr. Albert, if you were going to talk about this later, but I'm curious, as I look at all of these things, do we know where we are with enrollment, and if we're beginning to see a pattern of how they're enrolling towards some of these classes, if it is consistent with the survey results?
Okay, I'll let Pam take how they are enrolling, and then I can tell you about the enrollment, and then I also want to make a comment about your the whole concept of student engagement. So Pam,
I will tell you that in our initial opening of the fall, students gravitated to online only classes. We had several sections of online only that filled up more quickly than their on-campus offerings before we said we were moving to remote. So student action was telling us that the online also was helpful for them to make a decision what they wanted to do. But we've only really announced the new modalities recently, so we can't really track how that's looking yet. But the early data tells us students were kind of sticking with the online because they didn't know what to expect. And then I'll kind of turn it over to Dr. Albrecht from here.
And so in terms of our enrollment for the fall, we're down in a way that is concerning. I try to comfort ourselves by saying there hasn't been a single dual enrollment student that's been enrolled yet, because they don't know. The ISDs are still struggling with what their plans are. We have been working with them, and we think we will know something more very soon, with it, or maybe even early next week. So once we get the dual enrollment, which is, as you know, it's a curse and a blessing. It's a huge percentage of our head count. I think really it's more, I was going to say 36, but I think it's more like 39% of our head count. And, you know, so you're missing that many students right now, you got to figure you're down 39% of your heads. And we're a little bit more than that. So we are doing all sorts of things to try to reach out. We're doing call campaigns out of student services, and organizing some Facebook Live sessions and other social media. But I do want to say, to your point, Regent Shelton, that we are also very concerned about the student engagement point. And just yesterday, I think it was yesterday, our student activities coordinator put out an announcement for an event that she's going to hold virtually on Wednesday, August 26th, to reach out to the students and the students' clubs to try to get them virtually engaged in activities, because it's hard for these students who they're not seeing each other, not working with each other, not studying, face to face, and that is part of the important college experience. At community colleges, we lack that to begin with, because we don't have campus housing, and we don't. It's just different. We have a commuter campus, and people come in. Many times they come in, take their classes, and go. And we're always trying to do something to keep them on campus and keep them engaged, because we know that students learn better when they are engaged and work with others. So we're going to have to do that in a virtual format. We did a little bit of it in the spring semester too. So we are trying to be very mindful of that, and try to make some kind of experience for them where one really may not exist.
Wow. May I say something, please? When I first got on the board, I thought student housing was a great thing to consider. And with the themes that we're going towards virtual training and very little on-to-on or person-to-person association between people, I think this whole world is changing our view of how we're going to live in it. We talked about building on the Pearland site area, and I'm sitting here wondering, do we need a smaller, we still might need a smaller footprint there, but we don't need a huge campus, because everything seems to be trending towards the virtual. And then it takes away a lot of the personal association between students. And I hope you all feel, it seems like a very challenging thing to try to get this kind of good combination between interaction and virtual training. It's quite a challenge. I hope we're able to achieve it in a good way. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Stuxa. Are there any other questions for any of the folks regarding this issue? I do want to say, Dr. Albrecht, that I know the district has met with faculty and staff, and that starting the 24th, the students will be back in school virtually for 3 weeks. And then from that point on, after those 3 weeks, parents can decide whether they're doing virtual or, actual in school. So that might color, hopefully, the decisions that they have to make regarding dual credit. But thank you for that report. Okay, we are at, if there is nothing more on that item, we're going to go on to item number 6. And that's the status update regarding the regular maintenance and renovation projects. We are going to ask Mr. Amos Byington and with AGCM to provide an update on the projects. And this again is for information only. Mr. Byington?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to share our screen and I have a slideshow.
Thank you.
So thank you for your time, and I can speak for Matt and myself. We understand the times, but we do miss seeing you guys in person and saying hi and shaking your hands and so forth. But we'll do the best we can, and I'm going to. So there are a few new board members, and it was pointed out to me recently that we haven't really given an update since February. And so I thought that we would kind of backtrack a little bit very quickly. I have several slides, but I'm going to go very quickly and kind of give a little bit of how did we get here, and then I'm going to give some, I have some slides to show some current progress just to share with you guys, because I'm not sure that you get on campus very often, and when you do, these are construction sites and you don't get to go inside. So I'm going to kind of share a little bit of that. So if you, I will be going kind of fast. If you want me to slow down or talk about anything, just let me know and I'll be happy to stop on a slide and talk. So So at the very beginning, we found this newspaper article in the building here, and this was printed back when they were going to build A, B, C, and D, and somewhere between that time and now, air handlers and so forth started to wear down, and you guys put together a maintenance bond, and you asked us to help with the management of it. We came in and did a bunch of testing over one of the holidays where we were able to dissect some things and look at the conditions of things, and we did quite a bit of testing. After that, we also came in and we tried to make safe some of the sidewalks that people were tripping on, so we did some grinding. And then after we put all our data together, we came up with a budget, and we shared it with you guys. It was prioritized. So, as we go through the design process, if something became more, if we found out that we needed to spend more money on something else, we understood maybe what would drop off. At this point, and we did have contingencies. Some of the contingencies were there's $2 million in there for classroom furniture. We have not had to dip into that at this point, but that's the kind of thing that we put together. You guys voted on it, and then we started to move forward. We started off with 60 items. It turned out to be I think 83 items, and we got all of them except for, it looks like, 5 of them into the budget. Then we hired a design team. That was a process in itself. We interviewed quite a few and went through the process, selected a design team. Then over that next holiday, we did we started to work on some theater rigging and the fire curtain. We also did some other holiday work where the college was shut down, so we were able to go in and replace a lot of valves and all the kind of things that we needed to isolate buildings so that we could divide them up and work on them one at a time. Click through these again. More holiday work. We changed out some of the large electrical switches. We looked at a lot of the electrical equipment as well, and so while we were doing that, the design team is putting together a design package. We're renovating E-building. These are some of the renderings. We're renovating the Nolan Ryan Center. Again, some of the renderings that the design team put together. We're doing all the sidewalks on campus. There's an elevator that's going to come along here soon. Then we hired a general contractor, which was a process in itself. We tried to figure out how to effectively move the campus around and keep it up and running while we're doing construction, which was a puzzle in itself. There's about 60 construction workers here every day, and we try to keep on top of it. And so here's some of the pictures that's of the construction going on right now. This is in the Nolan Ryan Center. This is the multi-use space in the boardroom. Where's that map? Oh, there it is. Okay, it's went too backwards.
These pictures are slow.
Okay, this is the Nolan Ryan Center again on the culinary side. These are, you can see in the lower picture, there's a freezer and a refrigerator, a built-in freezer and refrigerator. These other stations right here are the hoods that go on top of the different stoves. So that's starting to become more in focus. There's air handlers. So there's we thought it would be neat to see, to share with you guys some of the before and after. So on the left is an old air handler. On the right is a new air handler. On the left is the old boiler. On the right are two new boilers. On the left is some old electrical gear. On the right is some of the newer electrical gear. On the left are some of the older restrooms. On the right is some of the newer restrooms. They're not complete yet, but I think you can kind of see the color palette and kind of start to see how it's coming together. In E building, we're under construction. Most of it's in demolition, and so it's pretty wide open. Which really is kind of a testament to the structure. It's the way it was designed is a very big open space with very little structure sitting in the way. G building, we're coming to the end and getting ready to do the flooring. These are some of the on the left is just the hallway. On the right is some of the colors that of the flooring that's going to be going in. I thought I'd share that. In the welding shop, we've just finished the upgrades to the welding shop. All of that equipment is new electrical, so that that facility can continue to grow a little and teach the classes that they would like to teach with upgraded electrical. That y'all really need upgraded electrical equipment in that area. This is the new TV and radio studio. It's coming together. On the left is the broadcast for the radio, and so you can see there's some windows there that students will be able to watch and see what's going on. And in the middle is also a window that looks in over the on the TV side, so you'll be able to watch and see what's going on there as well. And lastly, let's see. Okay. Lastly, we were asked, and Dr. Albrecht, I'm assuming this is the right time to talk about it. We were asked to look into upgrades to the jogging trail, and I was going to take this opportunity to talk about it now. And there's the company that we are using to do all the asphalt work for all the parking lots. We reached out to them to see if they could quickly kind of review the situation and share some budget type numbers, so that if we choose to move forward or not, it would help us make some decisions. And so we were asked to put this together and share it with you. In the middle there is a picture. Many of the cracks are going in the direction of the track as opposed to across the track. And not to get into all the details, but for that reason, it probably needs to not just get a new coat put on it, because it won't last very long. What we really need to do is pulverize and recompact what's there, and then put an overlay on top of it if we were to do option A. Option B is decomposed granite. We'd end up removing all the asphalt, putting some metal edging down, and putting decomposed granite, which is really those like little orange reddish pebbles that we see on other tracks. I tend to think that that's more of a longer term solution, but it also comes at a bigger upfront cost. And that's our presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Byington, for that information. Do we have any questions from any of the board members?
I've got a couple.
Okay, Regent Shelton, go ahead.
Thank you. So my first question, and I apologize if this is something that the rest of you may already know, and I just simply don't. On the buildings where we're doing the renovations, are we going with new LED lighting in all of them as opposed to the older fluorescents?
Yes, in fact, it's not just on the buildings we're doing renovations, we've done that campus wide.
Okay, and do we have a projection on what that is going to save us in terms of, any electrical or otherwise, in the long term? And I guess by extension of that, are we reflecting any of that savings in our forthcoming electrical budgets as some of that comes online, if that makes any sense?
So we did not perform any of those kind of calculations. However, very early on in the process, there's a state agency that helps look at energy saving type things, and we did ask them to look at it and share their thoughts. It's kind of a high level, some of it's very generic, but still they did come out and look at the campus. They looked at utility bills and made the recommendation that we would definitely benefit from in going in this direction. I can share that report if that's beneficial.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, I would expect that it's going to save it, and hopefully it's just going to save us skadoodles of money. And of course, just thinking toward all the budget stuff that we're talking about now, it'd be interesting if we could somehow even just take a guess that, this may save us X, whatever percentage or amount. I guess my other questions, and I won't, I don't want to, I know we got other things to talk about besides the track, but I did find those numbers interesting. And I guess I'm curious, how long has that current asphalt that we're looking at now lasted? Was that, and I don't know, was that 10 years ago, 20 years ago? How long have we got out of that last round of asphalt? Because I think, that's going to help us determine whether A or B, if we did A, are we only going to get 10 years out of it, or will that, does that make sense?
No, that's a good point. I don't know how long. I think we would have to ask Carl or somebody how long it's been around.
Can I interject?
Yes, Andy, go ahead.
I would venture to say when it was repaved, we had the county do it. We paid just for the asphalt itself. The county, we struck a deal with them and they did the paving for us. And I know it was well before 2008 when the hurricane came. I would venture to say probably around 2000 to 2002, because after the hurricane, the cracks had started that you're seeing. And in 2009, they took that, they sealed it with that we bought a little machine and we did it ourselves, sealed all those cracks. So I would venture to say somewhere 15 to 18 years that asphalt has been down there.
Thank you, Andy. I guess, we can talk about it more later, whatever the case, but I think one of the areas, in addition to the cracks, which are an obvious concern, but that little piece that we've got going back behind the baseball field along that little ravine, the roots there, I think, are causing a separate problem that's going to warrant some other concern. But either way, Amos, thank you for those costs. I think they're extremely helpful for us to get an idea what it's going to take to rectify that issue. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Thank you, Regents Shelton and Amos. Regent Marvel, you have a question?
Yeah, Amos, can you pull the first slide up, please?
Sure.
Actually, pull the one up with the numbers, if you don't mind. It's probably about slide 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go to slide 6. All right, so okay. And this is something I know that one of your goals was to inform the 2 new board members who weren't here part of the process. And so our initial estimate of 25 million, correct?
Yes.
How many projects have we approved in advance of that have already superseded the 25 million? I know we did 2 million in our last face-to-face meeting for building renovations and some other things, Nolan Ryan Center, right?
Oh, so let me make sure I understand your question. Are you saying, have we spent money over the 25 million? Is that what you're?
Yeah, we were going to pull some money out of some other funds to supplement this as well.
Yeah, that was about another $2 million worth of work that the college felt like if we were going to take like a building down, it would be nice to go ahead and do the, if there was some renovations to the actual rooms, that we would do it now instead of at a later date, since we already have everybody moved out. So yeah, there's an additional $2 million worth of funding of work that we're doing that's funded from another location. Yes.
So based on that is, and the track I know is something that probably safety wise is something we really have to address. Are there other projects that you've foreseen in since we had the last meeting, I think it was February, and every circumstance was different then, that you've come across that we should start be thinking about for the upcoming year as we're doing budgeting that might require funding on top of the maintenance bond?
Well, I think that's a great question. We're hitting all the things that have to do with mechanical systems, plumbing, but we've spent very little money on finishes, and so it's going to be kind of hard to see some of the things that we're doing, because most of it's in a closet or above a ceiling or underground even. If you were to look at those kind of items, finishes and stuff, there's quite a bit of that kind of stuff that I feel like the college would be happy if it was improved, whether it was flooring or ceiling tiles and things of that nature. There's a lot of ceiling tiles like in G, they're not in really great shape. So yeah, I think we could come together with a list. I don't know that I'm prepared to give that list right now. Mechanically wise, I think there's probably a few things that there could be done, but we're hitting most of them.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't looking for specific. I think as we budget, having a knowledge that as we come to the conclusion of a lot of these projects, that there are going to be some additional funding requirements just to get to the end of that project as we make our decisions, it would help us. I mean, not that we need the specific projects now, Amos, maybe, ballpark numbers anytime soon or a list of those projects.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Regent Marvel. Are there any other questions from any of the other regents at this point?
Yes, this is Roger Stuxo.
Go ahead.
I've been keeping a pretty good eye on the function of this supervision, and I think that the job that is being done to provide supervision over the construction of the college has been, how can I put it? I think they've done a good job. I think they've tried to save us money, and their estimates have been within reason of what the job needed to be done. I regret that a lot of it is not visual, but in the long run, the longevity of the college will be improved considerably by the things that, electrical, plumbing, the things that people don't really see, but they're going to make a big difference in how long in the life of our campus and the expenses incurred to maintain that campus. And I think Imus and his people have done a pretty darn good job. I have to say I'm impressed. So I'd leave it with that. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Stuxa. Yes, Mr. Byington, I did have a question for you. I've had inquiries from some of the board members as to whether or not it would be feasible to do a tour of some of the buildings. I know that there are safety issues when construction is being done, but would it be feasible for us to be able in small groups to get some tours of some of the areas that have been worked on or are being worked on? Many of us don't have a real good understanding of the various buildings because we don't go there on a regular basis. So what are your thoughts?
Yes, ma'am. I think that we could put together a time, probably in the afternoon when most of the contractors have left. Again, a lot of what we're doing is mechanical systems, and it's not super interesting, but we're happy to share it with you if you'd like to see it. I do think that it would be, you guys would enjoy looking at E-building, our building, and the radio station. So however you guys want to, get together and let us know, and we'll work out something.
Great. We will work with Dr. Albrecht and see what we can pull together so that we can do it in a safe social distancing manner, but provide that service to those regions that find it interesting and important at this time. Thank you so much.
Hey, Bill, you better get your hard hat and steel-toed shoes on.
I've got the hard hat. I'll have to work on the shoes, Roger. Thank you very much. Okay, if there are no further questions, we are going to proceed and go on to our next item, which is item 7, and that is to consider approval of Spectra contract flooring to replace theater. And Mr. Byington is going to introduce the item. Mr. Stager and Mr. Phillips will be available to answer questions, and I will ask Secretary Hertenberger and Regent Marvel to make a motion to approve this once they have finished discussing it with us, and then we will call the vote. We will make the motion and then entertain questions. Go ahead, Mr. Byington.
Yes, ma'am. We were first asked, there was some safety issues in the theater, and it was mostly a lot of the lights that go along the treads of each of the stairs that go along the inside part of the theater where the seatings are, but also in the corridor. When the lights are turned down and the little lights that are on the treads that are not working anymore, it's become kind of a danger, and so we were asked to address that. It's not worth replacing those lights without replacing the carpet, so we looked at different options. First of all, we've got to take all the carpet out and replace that. Second of all, we could go back in with the same kind of system, but I think it's subject to wear and tear. And in X number of years, you'll be in the same situation than you are now. So we looked at an alternative solution, and that is there are some lights that you can put on the end of each aisle where you rest your arm. It'll illuminate, and it'll say this is aisle 7 or aisle B or whatever the aisle is, and it'll also have a light that shines down on the carpet. So we feel like that's the best way to take care of it, but it still requires getting rid of the old system and the carpet. We did get cost estimates both ways. If we were going to go back with something similar that you have right now, this number right here of approximately $50,000 jumps up to $90,000. We asked them no. We said no, thank you. We'll take care of the lights in a different way, but we still need to take care of the carpet. And so this is part of the solution, and it's a proposal to replace the carpet in the theater and the base, and we're presenting it to you for approval. I can't hear. Sorry.
Secretary Hertenberger, would you make a motion?
So move.
And then,
second.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any questions for Mr. Byington or for Mr. Phillips or Mr. Stager on this item?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Does this include the stairways and the lobby and coming in, or just in the theater itself?
Yeah, it's actually all the carpet, including the carpet that's in the ticket booth.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Crum. Any other questions? If not, we will proceed to vote. I will call roll for a vote, please. Regent Crum,
Yes.
Vice Chair Draghi,
Yes.
Secretary Hertenberger,
Yes.
Regent Marble,
Yes.
Regent Sanchez is yes. Regent Shelton,
Yes.
Regent Starkey,
Want to do this?
Yes.
Regent Stuxa,
Yes.
Regent Tackard.
Yes.
The motion carries 9-0. Thank you very much. And now we will move to item 8, which is consider the approval of specialty products for filter media replacement and cooling tower repair at $97,000. Mr. Byington, if you would go ahead and introduce the item, and again, Mr. Stager and Mr. Phillips are available for questions also.
This is Matt Graves with AGC as well. I'll be presenting this one.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
So the cooling towers over at the central plant, one of the projects on that 62 project list that Amos brought up earlier was to replace the filter media in there. That's about $58,000 to do that. While we had, as we've been spending time on campus and Amos was showing you all the testing we did, talking to the physical plant guys, they brought up, we noticed there were some other issues with it that needed to be corrected, some different safeties and belts, and just kind of, it was time for them to have some regular maintenance on them. So we had the Evapco come out, or as TSP, which is the authorized Evapco rep for the area, come out, and they did a inspection on them, and they got all up in them and climbed to the top and checked every pulley and every sensor and every safety and everything on them. And he came out with a list of items that needed to be changed out, and to just, it's time, when we're doing everything else, it's time to get the cooling towers rehabbed. So there was an additional money for that. So the total value came out to about $97,000 to do not only the filter media, which was in the original bond project list, but the additional repairs as well.
Chair Sanchez, you're on mute.
Thank you much. Mr. Stager or Mr. Phillips, did you have anything to add to Matt's information?
No, ma'am, not from my side.
Yeah.
Right.
No, ma'am.
Okay, then I'm going to ask Regent Shelton to make a motion for approval, and a second by Regent Starkey, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you for that. We have a motion on the floor. Now, do we have any questions for Mr. Byington? Great. Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and move to vote. I'll call roll now. Regent Crum?
Yes.
Vice Chair Draghi?
Yes.
Secretary Hertenberger?
Yes.
Regent Marble?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez? Yes. Regent Shelton?
Yes.
Regent Starkey?
Yes.
Regent Stuxa?
Yes.
And Regent Tackard?
Yes.
The motion carries 9-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me?
We said thank you.
Oh, thank you, Amos and Matt. Item 9 is an item for some work in technology work in Building S, and that has been pulled at the request of the president. I don't know whether you wanted to say anything about that, Dr. Albrecht.
I'd be happy to. This item is a $153,000 technology upgrade item for the S building, and it was intended to, I guess simply stated, there are 4 tiered seating theaters in the S building, and the technology was intended to join together 2 at a time of the tiered seating, so that we could have one faculty member in one room, and his or her lecture could be broadcast to the second room. And we went about investigating this technology when we were intending to fully come back to the campus in the fall, and we knew we would need to social distance, and we couldn't put 80 people in those tiered seatings, and we were going to have to split them up and put 40 and 40. So now we are not coming back full force in the fall. As you saw from the recent data, there will be only 5% fully face-to-face and about 12, 13, 14% hybrid classes. So we don't have the dire need to do that. But secondarily, it's $153,000. And while we have some salary savings this year, I'm just a little nervous. I want to make sure we end the year in the black. And I think that this money, we might need it to help balance the budget and maybe even for additional expenses that we don't even know what they are yet, COVID-related expenses. So for that reason, we thought it prudent to pull the item. And I appreciate that Kelly did a lot of work and investigation, and Alan, did a lot with the purchasing and the contracts. And this is how the last several months have been. We go down one journey, and just like the journey that I told you about that we did when we tried to figure out what's the real capacity in every single classroom, and then what could we safely accommodate in the classroom with social distancing, and then after we spent hours and hours, days, weeks probably on it, then we decided we were going to move to remote learning, and that all that work, well, it's not for nothing, because now we actually do know the real capacities of our classrooms, which is worth something. But in any case, we felt it most prudent to pull this item.
Thank you, Dr. Albrecht. We appreciate that. Now we are going to move to item number 10, consider approval of TSI section testing fee change. When we have this presented, I would entertain a motion for approval from Regent Stuxa and a second from Regent Tackard. But we'll first have Mr. Stager introduce the item, and Dr. Bourne is going to be available also should we have any questions after we make the motion. Go ahead, Mr. Stager.
Yeah, this is to help accommodate a situation that we have. We currently are able to test face-to-face for these tests, but with social distancing, we don't have the capacity. So the price for that testing, the face-to-face testing, is $15, and that won't change. So we still have a low-cost option for our students. This is to just really cover the cost of using Examity if the capacity for the face-to-face is filled up and there's just no other choice, or if a student or a potential student wants to use the online option or the virtual option in order to take this test, and just cover the cost that we have to pay to the company for proctoring. The price currently that they would charge us, Examity, is $20, and they have talked to us about that the price would go up to $25, we think, very soon. So either way, if it's 20 or 25, it'll cover, this price will cover that extra cost to the college.
Chair Sanchez, you're muted.
Doggone, I will learn. Dr. Bourne, did you have anything that you wanted to add to Mr. Stager's report?
No, that covers it. This will give us additional options for our students and help increase capacity as more students need to test towards the end of registration.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I would entertain a motion from Regent Stuxa.
I make a motion to approve the TSI.
I'll second it.
Great. We have a motion on the floor. Are there any questions or discussion from any of the regents?
I have some questions.
Go ahead, Regent Shelton.
So I am under the impression that Examity is having some capacity issues regarding their online proctoring, that students who are wanting to book an exam proctoring there are having trouble getting an open slot, and they're having to go back to the site, refresh it, wait a few hours, go back again in order to try and secure a slot. Now, I recognize that that's an Examity issue and not an ACC issue that we have direct control of. And I also understand that there's probably a lot of other schools that are utilizing their service. And so I can only imagine trying to staff that seasonally. I get the challenge. However, I'm also concerned that if we've got students that are needing to take a TSI in order to enroll, that we may be seeing a delay in enrollment because of an examity issue. And I mean, obviously that's a concern. And if students are leaning toward, as our survey indicated, a desire for online curriculum, it would seem that they're also going to, if possible, want to do online proctoring. So, and I say all that to simply say that while I recognize we don't want to lose money on this, I also recognize that parents probably don't want to pay more for a less than desirable experience or pay more for a frustration than what we've got right now. So to me, it's almost a conundrum on when is Examity going to have the capacity so that students can take the TSI so that we can then have enrollment. And, do we charge more for that to recoup more of our money, or do we just take it on the chin? And if so, what's it going to cost us to take it on the chin? So that we don't run into people who are wanting to blame us for something that, in fairness, is really not our problem, but we chose Examity. I hope all that makes sense. And I don't know if there's an answer to it. I would be curious if Carl, if there is a number that we could say, well, if we just decide to take this on the chin, it's going to cost us X, what that might be.
Go ahead, Mr. Stager, if you want to respond.
Well, I would presume, I guess, that we would stick with the $15 price. That is the one price that we have passed, or the board has passed in so far in previous years, and so that's the price that we would charge, because we can only charge prices that the board has approved, and so it would be the $15 price. So it'd be my understanding. So $20 is the Examity cost, and then there's a little bit of a unit cost per single test. So it's about $1.75 per single test. So if it were a double test, it'd be $1.75 times 2, and then plus the $20. That in comparison to the $15 that we're recouping. So we're getting that little bit of a loss, and then we still have our overhead of our personnel and so forth, our testing personnel, for the work that they have to do related to it. But most of that is, in theory, done by Examity once the student is in there taking the test. So,
Dr. Bourne, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I think the challenges that Regent Shelton mentioned are real. We are noticing about a week delay for a student to get a test with Examity after they book it with us. But Dr. Albrecht mentioned earlier that we've taken some steps in calling students to help with enrollment. We've taken some steps in advising to increase capacity. And one of the biggest things that I think will affect testing is our move to allow for alternative temporary placement, particularly for new students. So that will reduce the number of students needing to test. So all of our dual enrollment students, all of our first-time college students will no longer need tests starting now. And that will decrease the capacity, or increase the capacity, if you will, both in our testing center and for Examity. I think that's going to be the biggest improvement. I've always been against increasing fees whenever we needed to, particularly since it only costs us, I think, Carl, you said about $1.75 per unit. But I think this is the best thing to do, give students the options to test online. There was a question about if students needed to take 3 sections, why they couldn't do all 3 sections on the campus as opposed to Examity. And we do have exceptions for that for our students with disabilities and our students who don't have the technology to test. They can test on campus as well. But I do think the alternative testing measures are going to make quite a difference with regard to the pressure, taking the pressure off both of our on-campus labs and for Examity. By the way, they are the only third-party vendor that the College Board, which is the test publisher, will allow us to use.
Chair
So we have
Sanchez,
no option.
add something.
Yes, go ahead, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Bourne.
Yes.
Dr. Albrecht, go ahead.
So the alternative placement that Dr. Bourne is talking about was permitted by the Texas Higher Ed Coordinating Board over the summer when we found ourselves in this bind where we were all remote, had gone remote, and yet we have new students coming in the summer and we don't have a placement test to give them because Examity wasn't even available. And so our Dr. Nadia Nazarenko had developed, had been working on this alternate placement for years and had done a great deal of work. And so coordinating board said we could use that for the summer, and then they extended it through the 2021 year, saying that you can use this alternative placement to place your students for the entire year, but you've got to track it and you've got to see if your alternative placement, which is based on the students' high school grades, a variety of different things, maybe their STAR exams and other things. I can't remember exactly what the protocol is, but you got to see if you did a good job in placing them. You know, when you use that rubric, did you put the student in the right mathematics class? Was that placement too high or too low? So they're developing a system for us to track all of that information. So that is what Dr. Bourne is talking about, that's going to be available to us now. So brand new students who have not yet taken the TSI test, whether face-to-face or with Examity, could virtually be assessed. Our advisors can look at their high school grades and then they can determine proper course placement. So that should really help us move things along.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Albrecht. Go ahead, Regent Shelton, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Well, just so to Dr. Albrecht, to off of that, how much of a difference is this going to make then? I mean, is this going to reduce our TSI testing substantially? And if so, does this make this point become almost moot in the sense that, well, you know, we're not going to be losing as much money? You know, I guess I'm one of those that I always hate having to pay more for the same hamburger that you know, if I'm getting the same thing and I got to pay more for it and nothing else has changed. I mean, you know, at least throw me an extra pickle or a slice of cheese on top to make me feel like I'm getting more. But if this alternative testing is going to, you know, minimize the number of students on the TSI, you know, then I'm wondering if this is, you know, worth it in the grand scheme of things, if there might be a negative perception. So.
Well, it definitely will reduce the number of people needing to take the TSI because the dual enrollment students, new dual enrollment students, all of them will be able to go there. And my understanding is, Dr. Bourne, it's for any other new first time to ACC or first time in college.
Any new student who doesn't have previous test scores or grades, we can use alternative placement for.
Great. Well, I think Regent Marvel, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that about the dual credit students. Only I've had a couple of inquiries about that related to the TSI. They're still going to be required to take the TSI, correct?
No dual enrollment students, dual credit students will be required to take the TSI. They'll be placed either, depending on their combination, into a co-requisite college level course with the developmental or straight into the college level course. If they pass those courses with a C or better, they're done. Their TSI met and will not be required to retest.
So I'm only from personal experience. Both of my children after 8th grade went right into dual credit. Those incoming 9th graders right now are TSI is waived for them. If I explain that to parents in the community.
New dual credit students. And so, yeah. Yes,
okay.
New dual credit students.
Thank you.
Great. Are there any other questions from any of the regents? Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and move to vote on this item. I will now call roll. Regent Crum?
Yes.
Regent Vice Chair Draghi?
Yes.
Secretary Hertenberger?
Yes.
Regent Marvel?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez? Yes. Regent Shelton?
No.
Okay. Regent Stuxa?
No.
Regent Tackard?
Yes.
The vote carries 7-2.
Regent Starkey votes yes.
I'm sorry, Regent Starkey, did I forget you? Well, I counted your vote anyway. Thank you. Thanks for keeping me on my toes. Now we are going to move to item 11, which has been pulled. I don't know whether you need to say anything about it, Dr. Albrecht, other than what's there. Uh,
I think you all could see the script. We had an outstanding candidate, made an offer, and then she declined due to salary requirements.
Okay, so the position has been reposted, and we will deal with it as we do. Ms. Edwards, I'm sure, will be working hard to try to find a replacement for us. Now we're going on to this is the fourth information presentation of the fiscal analysis and proposed 2020-2021 budget. This is for information only, so I'm going to ask Mr. Stager to go ahead and speak to us and regarding anything that we might need to be made aware of.
Okay, this is still the same budget total as before. So what we have here is the changes pages, just to show you the few incremental changes that net out to zero overall for the budget, since it's the same total budget. The changes that were made on these pages are highlighted in yellow, and some of them have some descriptions there in red to the right, is to show you what the change. The biggest,
or I can't see it anyway. Can you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. I forgot to share here. The biggest dollar amount that we're dealing with here that maybe is of most interest is here at the top, and it talks about its funds available for evergreen changes. Previously, that line item in the previous iteration of this budget said step increase, and so this is talking about the, moving from our old way of salary progression with steps to a new salary schedule, and how many dollars are available for that. So that previously on that line item, the last time you saw this, it was $287,884. Those were the dollars when we thought we were using the old step increase dollar amount for a step increase for the year of 2021. The difference on top of that is we've had recent retirements and so forth that add up to about $101,000. And so when you add that $287,884 that was on that line item plus the recent retirement, we have about frees up about $389,178 there for you to consider. There's small changes on some of these other line items that are in yellow. Maybe the other area that may be of interest to you is the baseball line item, and you can see some description there in red. I guess the term isn't necessarily red-shirted, but we have 3 scholarships, I think, that due to this last year that we're bringing over into the new year, and we're kind of accounting for the cost of those. It's not totally a gross amount there. You can see we're netting out some savings and travel there. So the net increase on the baseball line item here is $5,500, and it kind of shows the meal scholarships expense, the housing expense for those particular athletes. And then other than that, there's a small change under the Vice President Student Services. It had an overstated amount, and we reduced that by $1,500. The following page, let's see, I believe this page, and these are hot off the press, the bottom number on this page here on page 62, $389,178, and that's that line item that was I just talked to you about, that's up there in yellow and made up of the previous step increase plus the savings from retirement. And so then above that in this little chart, you can see this is the preliminary numbers from Evergreen from their salary study. And if you had a 1%, a 1.5%, 2%, or 3% increase under their salary system and the cost of that. So I'm just showing you the budget dollars at the bottom here compared to the cost dollars up above for those 4 different options.
Great. Great. Do we have any questions for Mr. Stager on this?
I have some questions.
Go ahead, Regent Marvel.
Carl, how are you?
Oh, doing all right.
There we go. That's good to hear.
I think I've been sitting in a chair all day long looking at my computer.
I will tell you that that is my life, and so those walks I get make it better. So, Carl, based on this, I'm looking more at the budgetary projection, and I might be off on this because the last face-to-face meeting we had, we covered it in depth, and I'm pretty certain it was ingrained into my brain that our budget this year was going to be estimated at about a 5% reduction. Is that correct? Of lost revenue or possible regressions?
Yeah, we had several different things, and it always seemed to center around 5%. So with state money, next year it's the second year of the biennium, and so far, as long as the state holds to their word, with a letter from the governor and the lieutenant governor and the speaker of the House, is that community colleges will not be subject to a 5% decrease that they're proposing for a lot of other agencies throughout the state. And just this week, the comptroller of the state of Texas came out with his preliminary revenue projection for the next year, and I'd have to read even more detail, but of course it doesn't look good. So we didn't lose state money on that line item of support. For taxes, we do have a reduction in tuition and fees. Let me talk about that one first. And so that is, that was the very, very difficult one to determine, because and that's the same true from meetings that we've had with the CEOs and the CFOs. They're meeting every 2 weeks, and it's the same story everywhere, that it's very difficult to determine what our number is going to be for tuition and fees. And so everybody's watching daily, are we still behind, or are we making any progress? Taxes, the valuation came out very well. Of course, it was done, based on January 1st. So that was before the pandemic. So we're still waiting. We'll get a number, I think maybe this Saturday. Should be by next Monday, from Robin Garrett. We talked to her a little bit earlier this week, just learning some of the nuances of what's happened with the new law related to tax calculations. So we are we put in a 5% reduction for the valuation. So we brought the valuation 5%. Usually we would bring it down 3%. Then we made a calculation on a number, and then of what would be taxes, and then we took 5% more, and that would be the 5% related to collectability. We've never done a 5% reduction on collectability before. The revenue number still comes out very healthy in taxes, if that estimate holds true, and that's what we'll find out, I guess, a week from now from Robin Garrett. A little bit that we did find out, just to show you of how the state of Texas has tightened up the tax calculation, is the first part of the calculation she works on is the debt payment portion of the tax. That's called INS, for interest and sinking. And so what she had to do is she had to look at the 3 previous years of our interest and sinking collections. And in each one of them, we collected at least 101% of what we needed. The lowest number of those 3 years was 101.1%. So she has to take that 101.1% and reduce what our new year calculation will be. I think what that means, we'll see what the number how the number comes out. I think what it means is when she gives us a number for the interest and sinking portion of our tax, that the number won't be 100% calculation. I think it's going to be maybe a 98 or a 99% number. So we're sitting on, in that particular fund, about $66,000. So basically the state of Texas says, oh, we know that you over collected, therefore you can use some of your own money to help pay off some of your debt, and that would be the money that we have in the bank. Hopefully that her calculation plus $66,000 still helps us to pay off the debt. So that's the downside a little bit, but the upside of that possibly could be, since that's a reduction in the amount of the debt portion of the rate, that means all the remainder of the rate is for operations. So that means more of the money in the tax rate can go toward operations, and so which in theory should have a suppressing effect on what we need in order to make our budget. And so that's what we're waiting for to see if we can, come up with the tax rate that will match what we need. I think this year, even once we adopt a budget, it's going to be a budget that we'll have to watch from the very first month of the year and watch every month. It's going to be a budget that we'll have to manage more than probably any other year that we had to. So it's something that we're just going to have to watch this year, because we won't have a good idea probably until September or so. In theory, we should have about 40% of our tuition and fees at least in a receivable amount or collected by that time for the fall, and that will give us an idea of how our rates are going. Can we achieve close to 40% of our tuition and fees here by October or so, and midway through the fall semester?
So what I'm hearing is the uncertainty, especially with the enrollment numbers. I know, Dr. Albrecht, you had stated that 39% dual enrollment numbers haven't even come in. And you said it's in advance of that there's a level of uncertainty right now as we're trying to make budgetary decisions that, unfortunately, we won't know those answers till September. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, we will know what our enrollment is, at Census Day, which is, our classes start, the bulk of our classes start August 24th. So we'll have a better idea, and we're very hopeful that we will be able to get our dual enrollment students registered as soon as the plans are announced, and we can work with the ISDs. We've been meeting with them right along, but there is a great deal of uncertainty, as well as Carl mentioned, we are operating under some new tax laws, and just when we got everybody used to understanding what the effective rate is, now they've changed that term to, Carl, what are they calling it now? Voter.
Let me see. The effective tax rate, I think, is now called the no new revenue rate. It makes sense to somebody that never knew what the effective rate is.
And also, if we wanted to increase taxes, as we have done in the past, we would have to have 2 tax hearings. I think now that's changed to only 1. And we are still held to the 8% tax rate, whereas many other taxing entities were reduced to a 2% rollback rate, which they're now not calling a rollback rate. They're calling it a voter approval rate or something like that. In any case, we're going to know more very soon. We just don't know it today. And I may need to be reaching out to you for a special meeting. We have a workshop coming up on August 3rd, so maybe we'll be able to just talk more about it then. But at this point, still several unknowns.
And I promise my last question here. So in order to meet our debt requirement, we're going to have to raise our actual taxing rate. Is that an accurate statement?
No, not necessarily. Basically, the INS portion of the tax rate is the very first portion of the tax rate. It's like the foundation of the tax rate. And so Robin Garrett has to calculate that first. And so she now has new rules, as I was just explaining there. And it can go, actually, generally, it probably does go down just because our valuations have been going up. But it also can go down because as we pay off debt, we've refinanced and so forth. So at certain year increments, there's going to be less debt that we have to pay off because those debt payments are finished. So it can get affected by that. How much do we have to pay? And on any given year, the financial people that help us build these debt structures, they backload a lot of times the debt more toward the end, so it's possible it could go up. They could, if they front loaded it or loaded it more in the middle of the time period, we could be past that now, and it could be that we have smaller payments going. I'd actually have to look at the schedule there.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Anybody else have a question for Mr. Steger or Dr. Albrecht? Great. Hearing none, then I assume that we have finished with that presentation, and we can move on to our item 13, which is the financial report ending in June 2020. I'm going to ask Regent Crum and Vice Chair Draghi to make a motion so that we can have a discussion regarding that item. Regent Crum.
Move to approve the financial report.
Vice Chair Draghi.
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Regent Carl, do you have anything in particular you need to point out about the financials? Or are there any questions from anybody?
I do have some questions, Carl, and I think it's more of an educational thing. I'm sorry. I promised last questions were on the last budget. I wanted to kind of take a look at the consolidated statement of net assets.
Okay.
There was just some numbers that I know there's a logical reason behind them. I just can't put it in my brain right now. This time last year, June 30th, when we look at page 1 of the consolidated statement of net assets, our deferred outflows for pensions were $4 million right now. And this time last year, it was $673,000. That is a significant change of $3.4 million to the deferred outflows pension. Is that something that we should be expecting is going to hit us?
Well, I can have Ms. Kraft help me answer some of that in detail, but generally, no, I would not worry about these as much as as ominous as they look. In the accounting world, they want to show every liability or every potential liability that's out there. So what we've had is, and see the particular item, what's the description again there?
It's deferred outflows pensions.
Pensions, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that particular one is, and as you can see out to the right, it's related to TRS pension.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, we work with TRS, with the state of Texas, and they give out a calculation to everyone. And so, of course, with the number of school teachers and administrators in public schools, and then all colleges and universities and that have TRS retirement, that's a very large number. And so they have to, in effect, apportion our particular share of that potential liability out to each individual college and each individual school district. So that's why you get these large number fluctuations. Mainly, the TRS is, going to be paid for by the state. They have, in the last several years, changed the dollar amounts that are charged to the employees to help build up their actuarial numbers, to make them look, to make sure they're going to have money. They've kind of pushed back retirement requirements so that it's not quite so easy to retire at the age of 52. They have requirements for new employees coming in that I think it's like a age of 62 that they have now for some employees that aren't grandfathered. So ultimately, the money is paid for by the state. We pay yearly to TRS as they charge us, and there isn't a pot of money that we have, that would pay these dollars in the future. It's all based on the numbers of employees that we have, the numbers that are in the state, and it's mainly done on a yearly or biennium basis, really, with the state, and we pay each month. I don't know, is there anything else, Debbie, that you wanted to add to that?
It looked like our liability in the course of a year went from 673,000 to 4 million. That's the appearance of that, which is a significant amount of money. Is that not, the liability's not on the institution, or what is that?
Well,
that's the increase.
Right. And actually, the liability is probably down below. So actually, yeah, you actually can see the kind of counterpart of it. The liability is down in the liability section that says net pension liability.
Mm-hmm.
But where it says deferred outflows, I mean, that's basically saying, and this is the way accounting looks at it, that's deferred outflows. So something that we're going to have to give out in the future. Since we don't have to give it out right now, and they put the word deferred in it, that's an asset to us. So technically, this particular line item is in the asset section. You can see it's right there under non-current, but it is a reflection of down below the net pension liability, which you can see almost an equivalent 3.7 million, 3790 million number of swing in that number as well.
Okay, so they offset.
Yes.
Okay, that was it.
Great. Anyone else have a question? If not, we have a motion on the floor. Let me take roll now. Regent Crum?
Yes.
Vice Chair Draghi?
Yes.
Secretary Hertenberger?
Yes.
Regent Marble?
Yes.
Regent Sanchez? Yes. Regent Shelton?
Yes.
Regent Starkey?
Yes.
Regent Stuxa?
Yes.
And Regent Tackard?
Yes.
The motion carries 9-0. And so at this time, we are at item 14, which we are going to convene in executive session. We will now adjourn to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 for private consultation with our attorney when seeking the advice of its attorney, and Section 551.074 to deliberate the evaluation of ACC employees, including but not limited to the college president's goals as related to the president's evaluation. The time is now 7:50. And so we will now convene to executive session. Remember that you are going to go into your second Teams meeting on your calendar. Thank you. It is now time to move back into open session. I'm calling this meeting back into order. And we are going to now consider approval of the amendments to the president's contract. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, I move to approve the amendments to the president's contract of employment as discussed in executive session.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Jody Draghi, Vice Chair Jody Draghi seconds that. I have a motion on the floor. I don't think there's any need for discussion, and so we will proceed to vote. Regent Crum?
Yes.
Vice Chair Draghi?
Yes.
Regent Marble?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez, yes. Regent Shelton?
Yes.
Regent Starkey?
Yes.
Regent Stuxa?
Yes.
Regent Tackard?
Yes. How do you?
Regent Hertenberger, how do you vote?
Aye, yes.
Thank you. Now that, thank you very much. So that will give us a 9-0 vote on that, and that motion passes. It is now time to make a motion for adjournment. Regent Starkey, would you make that motion, please?
Happily move to adjourn.
And second by Regent Crum, please.
Hold on.
Regent Crum, would you second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? I think we're all just going to give a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes 9-0.